You guys having a good weekend so far? Awesome. Okay, before we get things underway, a couple house rules. We do have a microphone located right over there. So start thinking about your questions now, and I'll let you guys know when you can start lining up to ask them. But before we bring out our guest, let's roll a video.
I just want to connect. Why can't I connect with people? Oh, right. It's because I'm dead. And that everyone die. I'm going to grow to full power. There you go! That's beautiful. But none of this matters, you patronizing clown. The government gave me the authority to kill you. If not today, then
Spooky Empire, make some noise for the one and only Nicholas Hoult!
Thanks for coming out. How's everyone doing?
How was your weekend, and how was your Halloween?
Halloween was great. So I was at home last night and I was dressed up as Slimer.
Nice!
My wife was Stay Puft, she was inflatable Stay Puft, and the kids were the Ghostbusters. So I went well. Yeah.
I love it.
I hopped on a plane, and here I am.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
very little sleep, so I apologize in advance if I make no sense.
No worries. I think we're all on little sleep, but thank you so much for being here. So, speaking of little sleep, since we are here at Spooky Empire, out of curiosity, what was the first horror film you remember seeing that made you lose sleep?
Well, I remember the first time I was properly scared of a film was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. There's a character called the Child Catcher. And I saw it when I was like 3 years old. You know when they're hiding under the floorboards and he's above them, like walking around trying to smell them and stuff. And I was like, I remember I was on holiday with my family and I went running into my parents' room crying. And my dad bust into the other room where my older brother and sister were, and he was like, "What are you watching?" Thinking they were going to be watching something terrible that they shouldn't be. And I was Chitty Bang Bang. But then outside of that, I saw The Exorcist when I was too young. Because I had an older brother who was 12 years older than me, so I would sneak in and watch all his VHSs. So I remember watching The Exorcist, and I would turn it on and watch it for a little bit, and then I'd get too scared and turn back to Teletubbies. And then go back to The Exorcist, and then I'd like flip back and forth. So that was one of the scariest ones pretty early. I don't know how old I was, too young.
Right. I feel like that's always the story of The Exorcist. We've all seen it way too young. But, okay, I wanted to ask. So, you played both the monster and you've also played the servant to a monster. What was more fun to embody? Like a zombie finding humanity or like a human losing it?
Playing the zombie was really fun because I basically had to learn no dialogue. I'd look at the pages for the next day and it would just be like, keep you safe. And I'd be like, right, I can remember that easily. So that was fun. And then playing the servant to a monster, I mean, I got to play opposite Nicholas Cage playing Dracula, which I just don't think it gets more iconic than so that was really special to get to be on set with him and watch where he draws inspiration from and then him commit to that character and what he brought to it. It was incredible to be there with him.
Well, speaking of Nicolas Cage, obviously some over-the-top moments, but do you have a favorite scene that made you go, like, that's ridiculous, but it's so perfect?
With Cage?
Yeah.
There's a scene where Renfield returns home to his apartment after he's tried to break free of Dracula's possessive nature over him. And Nick had the idea of having a martini, a blood martini, with eyeballs in it. So I walked in and he was slurping on this martini, and then he drew inspiration, I can't remember if it was from his aunt, I think, or something, partly for that character. And so what did he call me? It's like pretty boy or something. It's something, it wasn't that, but it was close to that. It was just so funny how he said it, that each time I walked in, I would see him sitting there with his martini, and he'd say that. It felt truly like a jilted lover who was so upset with me trying to leave him. He was brilliant.
So between Renfield and Nosferatu, you've had very different experiences with different types of vampires, obviously. So how would Dracula react to Count Orlok?
How would Dracula react to Count Orlok? I mean, I guess technically Count Orlok's copying him. Right? That was the whole thing with Nosferatu, was it? But I guess in terms of those stories, Dracula, yeah, it was much more of that codependent relationship and much more manipulative. And whereas, Count Orlok in Nosferatu, he's just trying to get to Ellen. He's just, Thomas is just the way to get there. But they're so different. And Bill's performance in that movie as well, like the first time I heard the voice he's going to do, I was like, wow, this sounds like nothing I've ever seen on film before. And then the physicality he brought to that character, and then obviously Robert Eggers is one of the greatest directors ever, in my opinion. So getting to be on one of his sets and experience like that atmosphere and the detail that he brings to the storytelling and the historic nature of it, it feels real. It feels like you are playing with something in the occult, which you probably shouldn't do. Like, are we going to unleash some demons doing this? So it was just amazing to be in that atmosphere.
Everything about that film was so visually stunning. It sounded beautiful too. But your first day on set, did you feel like you were being transported into a different realm? I mean, what was the first day of shooting like?
Yeah, a lot of the first days on set for me on that were in the castle, in Count Orlok's castle, where they built the set, and then it would all be, Jerry and the DP was incredible. How he'd light, using mainly candles. So it felt very atmospheric, and then Robert played music as well. So it felt like you'd been, sent back to Germany in that era in this kind of horrible, terrifying, lonely castle, and it felt quite. It felt like you were trapped in the best possible way, because I love Rob's movies so much and the performances that he captures. That I was really just trying to stay locked in and do something special performance-wise for that character. So. It was creepy. Yeah, it was creepy. Also, in my mind, I always said, I'm not going to do horror movies. Because I've had friends who do horror movies, and they're like, oh, it's tough, man. For 8-10 weeks, you're hyperventilating for 12 hours a day, acting scared, and your nervous system kind of reacts to that. You're trying to trick your body into believing these things are happening. And then I suddenly realized a week or two into Nosferatu, I was like, oh, I'm doing it. I was like, this is it, this is happening. And I was just running up and down the spot, hyperventilating, being scared. It was exhausting, but in the best possible way.
I have to, of course, bring up your portrayal of Lex, which is so great, right, guys? I mean, how did you approach Lex's moral compass, right? Because a lot of times we hear this idea of someone being the villain, right? But in their own head, they're not necessarily the villain to themselves. So how did you justify Lex's actions?
I think it was this idea of a moral purpose, whereby the means to getting to your goal, because you see that as the ultimate good in what you're doing, therefore all the negatives along the way are kind of justified. That was my thing with Lex. So he does truly believe, in my opinion, from what the research I did and how I was trying to portray him, that Superman could pose a threat, and also that humans have the right to determine their own destiny and not have this godlike figure kind of controlling the path that humanity takes. So in some ways, I tried to implement a real humanist belief in him, where he loved humans, even though he was horrible and treated them terribly most of the time. But that he would feel it was coming from a good place of almost being a protective nature. And then on top of that, this envy and this idea of him wanting to be the alpha and the greatest brain and everything else in the world, and have praise for all the good that he has done in terms of the technology and what he's created, have that all taken away by someone who's kind of just gifted these gifts. So I see him as someone who is incredibly hardworking, and then someone else has turned up and let's do the test, and they've got a better score without putting in any homework whatsoever. It's kind of hang on, this isn't fair. So it's all those elements, I think, that makes for me.
Was there anything or any one in particular that you drew inspiration from for your portrayal?
No, it was a mix of things. It wasn't like one thing. There were a few different books I read, and then I watched previous versions of the character. One of the things I found really useful was James had a piece of John Murphy's score before we even started filming. This was maybe 4 months before we started filming. He had like Alexa's theme recorded already, so I would listen to that on repeat like a psychopath over and over again, and I would I don't know, there was something about that music that I then found very triggering. So like the final scene when Lex has been defeated by Superman, they kind of come face to face and Lex realised that he's lost his reputation and the battle and everything that he was trying to achieve. James was playing that music onto the set, which was great because I had all these emotions and time I put into thinking about the character with that music tied to it, so it kind of brought out those emotions.
Is that something that you've done before? Like, do you listen to certain songs as different characters to get into the feeling? Or is this the first time you've done that?
Yeah, I do sometimes, yeah. And directors have had different, different playlists that they put together sometimes, or I have different music from the era of the film that maybe I'm doing and stuff like that. So yeah, it can be really useful, particularly on set, because there's a lot of time when suddenly people call action and it's been like, hang on, there's been a lot of commotion and noise and stuff going on where if you can have that music to listen to kind of take yourself off into your own headspace and feel like you're in the world that you're meant to be inhabiting, that's kind of a useful trigger.
What about like the opposite end of that? What about like at the end of the shooting day, being pulled out of the character? Is there anything that you need to do to decompress, or can you kind of just snap out of it?
I'm not like one of those where
In person or anything?
Yeah, I don't think there's like a weird, it's not a method, I don't know what to describe it as, you kind of just try and be hyper-focused. But then at the end of the day, it's like, right, I can't go home and behave like Lex Luthor at home. It make no sense to my family. I could. I don't think I'd be allowed home much longer. So I kind of drop it, and then when I get to work the next morning, try and just focus again.
Because Lex Luthor's slimer might be a little interesting as well, too.
Yes.
So if it's okay with you, I did mention we have a microphone. If you guys have your questions, now is your time to ask. All right. Hey, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Chris Hollander.
We met earlier.
Yes, we did. My question for you is, one of your earliest films was about a boy, and you worked with Tony Collette in that, and then just this past year, you worked with her again in Juror Number 2. I was wondering what you felt was different about working with her as a child actor and now as an adult, like what changed with you and the dynamic with working with her.
Ooh, good question. First of all, I love Tony so much. She was such a formative part of my life when we shot about when I was 11, and she played my mum, so we have that kind of history that we share. And then I've seen her maybe once since then, and suddenly it's, I don't know, 22 years later, and we're filming Juror Number 2, and the first scene that we shot for that was the scene right at the end of the movie, when there's a knock at the door and Justin, my character, opens the door and sees it's Tony and realizes, we don't know what he realizes because it's a cliffhanger, but that potentially she's there to kind of hold him accountable for the crime that he's committed. And we shot a few different versions of that, some with police officers standing either side of her, some with no police, some with a police car just across the road, so it alluded to them maybe there. And it was interesting opening the door because there was a sense, first of all, Tony's like a ray of light in life. She's such a joyful, wonderful person. But there's this thing whereby I'd open the door and look in her eyes, and it was like we had this whole history and life that we previously shared when I was a kid, and now I'm an adult working with her like as an adult, which is just different, I suppose. So it was really nice. I think it was additive to that scene because we just already had this kind of rapport with each other. So it was really special to be back on set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's your name?
Stephen, my name. And I keep going back to About a Boy. I was wondering, when you were working on that film, working with Hugh Grant and Tony, what did you learn, if anything, from them that you still apply to, that you actually learned and apply to your craft still today?
I think I was lucky working with Tony and Hugh. Was my first experience on a big movie like that because they were both so kind to everyone on set. They were focused on the work and really cared. they wanted every scene and every moment to be the best they possibly could, and the movie to be good. But then they were also very encouraging and kind to me, but also to everyone else on the set. And I think that just kind of set me up for understanding as a kid how things should run and be on a movie, because it's not always the case. So I think if I had a different experience at that age, it would have either put me off wanting to be in movies or just showing me the wrong path.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hi. Since James Gunn has a history of using the same actor in different roles, but in the same projects, if you have the opportunity to play someone you haven't already played in both DC and Marvel, who would you like to play?
I've auditioned for a lot of them. Wonder Woman. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to think about that, and yeah, I don't have a good answer for you on that. Sorry. Wonder Woman. That's my answer. One of the big three.
Hi, I'm Jim. This is Jen. I'm her emotional support at the microphone for you. We've been following you since About a Boy, so we love your work and career. And she wanted to ask a question. Go ahead, Jen.
I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your performance on The Great. I was just wondering, what you thought. Can you talk a little bit about your experience working on that number?
Yeah. Thank you so much. The Great is probably Peter was probably my most favorite character I've ever played. I love Tony McNamara's writing so much. Every time I'd open up a script, it would make me laugh, it would be ridiculous, the character would suddenly turn on a dime and be very dangerous or weirdly sweet and emotional in an odd way, where I was like, I'm just getting to play such a range of bizarre things within that character. And also Elle Fanning is such an incredible actress. I loved being in a scene partner with her because I think we had really great chemistry on screen, and so it'd be really fun because whenever we would do scenes, it was like we knew each other and the characters so well that we could be in the scene, do the scene, and then also kind of know what the other one was thinking throughout the scene. Because afterwards we could be like, in a cool cut, we'd be like, I know that you did this better, and we'd kind of be working on a different level, as opposed to just doing the scene at the same time, which I don't think I've ever really had with another actor before, so that was exciting. Yeah, I was just, because I met Tony whilst we were filming The Favourite, and then he said, I've got this idea for this Catherine the Great show, and I said, keep the script, and I read it, and I was like, I just loved it so much. So I think I'm happy that the character ended when it did, because I think I never want to outstay my welcome, with a character. So I'd rather leave too soon and make people miss a character than do it for years on end and people be like, okay, we get it, that's enough of that. That is the character that I probably would get. I remember my last day shooting, I was in tears because I was like, I'm going to miss doing this.
Hey mate, how you going?
Good, how are you?
Very good, mate. I just want to ask about juror number 2 and working with Clint Eastwood, and what that was like. I know coming from Australia, we didn't get it in cinemas at all. We waited months for it to come to streaming, so hard to find, but well worth it when we did find it. So you just your experiences with Clint, basically, I think.
Experiences with Clint, that was amazing.
I think his last movie, I guess, in 12 months.
Yeah, I felt very lucky. We were filming Nosferatu, and I got a call from my agents, and they said, Clint Eastwood wants to speak to you. I was like, you got the right number. What's going on? What is Clint going to speak? First of all, I was like, does Clint Eastwood know who I am? That's pretty mad. But Clint had seen The Great. And he found it very funny, and he was like, so he was like, you come to this movie, and I remember instantly I was like, oh, we're going to get along well, because we got on the phone, and I was prepared for like a serious conversation about the script. I was like, okay, and I said to him, I was like, Clint, it's long to speak to you, etc. And I was like, I really like the script, blah, blah, and then he goes, if you like it so much, I guess I'll have to read it. And I was like, oh. I was like, okay, he's funny, he's got a good sense of humor, and that's what he and I really connected on, I think. We're both pretty calm, relaxed people. And he's got a really sharp sense of humour. His set is very calm. Like everyone he collaborates with, they're at the top of their game, and they've been a team for 30 plus years. And I think the wonderful thing about Clint that you don't see as much anymore, he's really willing to let the story and the script do the work. He's not ever trying to oversell things or pinpoint things for his audience. He wants, particularly with a story like that, with a bit of moral ambiguity, he wants to let people kind of try and figure it out for themselves. And so you will, you do one take, maybe, two, and then he's like, great. There's no action or comment, it's just whenever you're ready. Stop. Okay, and it's like, moving on. The one really thing that I'll never forget was occasionally he'd come and sit next to the camera. But it was kind of a heightened moment that he wanted to see what was going on, not through the monitors. And that was the most bizarre thing, because I remember sitting there doing a scene with Kiefer Sutherland. But Clint was sitting here, not in my periphery, here. I was like, this is fuck, because he's just locked in on you. And they're like, well, that's Clint Eastwood, watching me act. And I was like, oh, he seems happy. So but yeah, it was a really, really special experience. I'm very lucky to get to spend that time with him.
Thank you very much. Shout out to the Skins as well. I love that show.
Steve.
Hi. Nick, you worked with a great bunch of directors. You worked with Latimos in Favorite, George Miller in Mad Max, Robert Eggers in Nosferatu, and Clint on Juror number 2. Is there anything that you take away from working with those filmmakers, collaborating with them, that you try, you lock it in and try to see what, this is what I've learned from them, and what I can utilize in future projects working with other directors?
I think the thing that I would take from them is actually that they all work in such different ways that I don't have a set way of working as an actor. So it was interesting because you go from the set to 10 where you do one, maybe two takes, and it's very calm, and then he's like a jazz musician, he's just kind of feeling it out, and you just skip and riff. And then you go to Robert Eggers' set for Nosferatu, where he's meticulously prepared every frame, every storyboard. The shots are completely planned out because they're longer single shots through takes, and it's very specific. So it's like a different way of working. Also shooting on film and knowing that you can't edit around if something goes wrong in one of those longer shots. You end up doing 20, 30 takes. So it becomes like just a very different thing where you kind of, as an actor, have to be able to fit into the pattern of how different directors want to work. And that's what's exciting about working with great directors, is they have a wonderful way of communicating with you. And making you feel at ease and relaxed and getting the performance they need. And that's something that George Miller was fantastic at. In the chaos of the Mad Max set, still taking time to come up before a take and being like, okay, this is what just happened, this is what I need, blah, blah, and just kind of talk you through it in a very kind, sensitive, nice way. So that was kind of something that all of them have in common, is that communication. I would say that's probably the most key thing. That you're all on the same page in terms of what you're trying to make.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, hi. I have to ask, about Skins. I watched it probably way too young, but I've been watching you ever since, and I'm just curious, were there any personal experiences or lessons that you've learned from there that you've carried throughout your life?
I can talk about it's interesting. I love the experience of Skins because it felt like a show that was written by people in our age group who didn't feel like adults kind of trying to tell these teenager stories. And also the fact that all of us, whilst we were shooting, we were 16, 17, we were the right age for the characters we were playing. But it was hugely formative years for me, because that was as a 16-year-old, my first time kind of living away from home, working on my own without a chaperone. So I did get this in trouble. But that was all part of the experience, in that age group when you're growing up, you kind of think you're an adult, but you're not really, and you're having all these experiences. So, but I guess the wonderful thing about it was we were all going through it together in a way where that first season, no one knew the show, but there weren't expectations for it. No one knew it was going to become kind of this cult hit thing. So we were all having fun, and we all became really good friends, and we're still friends now. So that's what's really special about it, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Nick. My name's Larry. I just wanted to say thank you for all the work that you've done. I've been a fan since Skins, Warm Bodies, all the way now to Superman. So thank you for bringing to life these characters and for just doing it in a unique way. I have one request for you, if you don't mind. Could you say huzzah for me?
Huzzah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Very kind of you.
Hey Nick, welcome to our forum later. My question's a little different than most. I love watching a Grammar who's like an amazing human being. Most art actors, after they shoot a set, they come home with a little something, and I know you came home with a little something from Nosferatu. My question is, where is it displayed, and does it have a name?
Does it have a name?
All guys name, you know.
I haven't named it. I'm open to suggestions. Warlocks should be called. You know what? It's actually it's not on the wall at the moment. My wife was like, no. And I was like, this is moving memorabilia. This is beautiful. What are you talking about? Let's put it up. So at the moment, it's not being displayed. But the best thing about it was when Rob he gave me the gift, we then shipped it back from Prague to my home, and it broke on the way home, the glass on the frame. So I had to take it to a frame store. I walked in with this vampire penis. I said, please could you fix the frame on this? And the guy didn't even blink an eye, to be honest with you. It was like he'd seen that 1,000 times. But when I went back to pick it up, it was fixed, he goes, is this some kind of collector's item? I was like, well, I suppose it could be. But yeah, so it's not on display, and send me suggestions for that.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for being here. I know I just keep thinking about that conversation of we're not going to hang it up, you know. But I wanted to ask, so I follow Isaac Marion, the author of Warm Bodies, on socials, and he's kind of become like my image in my mind of like the starving artist. And so I'm wondering for you, like, what's been one of the hard parts about being an artist?
What's been one of the hard parts about being an artist? I mean, it's always that thing, it's quite a vulnerable position to put yourself into. And I remember probably more recently than before, feeling like I didn't want to put work out to be judged. You know, there was a little bit of me like, I don't know if that was just like a build-up of years of it being like, okay, it's kind of like a weird thing, you finish and you do your best and you really care for a project and you put your heart and soul into it. And then it comes out and people go, yeah, or like say things where you're kind of like, oh, that, you know, I try to avoid all that stuff, but it's still something where like, that can be tricky. But it's also like the reverse of that when you get to come to something like this and you meet loads of people who have enjoyed things that you've done and really appreciate them, and then you have this wonderful feeling that's the opposite of that. So you have to kind of accept the highs and the lows, I guess, and I think that's something that Colin Firth told me actually when we were working together doing Tom Ford's movie, Sinking Man. He was like, there's going to be highs and lows, so enjoy the highs, but get ready for the lows because they will happen. And I think that's something about being an artist in general, is like you're always trying to find creative energy and things to put into your work, but then also there's this weird thing of like feeling like people are judging you. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, after you finish your role, what is your filming process like after filming for so long and getting used to being that character for a while?
You know what? The process is it's pretty quick, because normally, like, by the time you finish, it's like everyone's packing up, you've got to get home, or you're on to doing something else, and you're just back into life. Normally, because you've been like blinkered and focused so much on the job, you've realized that like, oh, you haven't, I don't know, fixed things around the house, or done this, or like there's lots of things you need to catch up on. So suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I've got to get back into real life. So I guess that's my thing, is like I'm kind of always busy, and that stops me from dwelling on things too much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello again, Mr. Hoult.
See ya.
So I have a question. I hope this is not too deep, but what got you into acting initially? Like, what kind of made you think, you know what, I want to be an actor?
You know what, I got into it because my older brother, who's 12 years older than me, really liked acting, and he would do the school plays and local theatre. And then my older sister did a lot of singing and dancing, and she won a singing competition. And one of the other kids that was in the competition had an agent and suggested that my sister should get an agent. And then we, like me and my younger sister, ended up getting one too because of my older sister. So it was kind of a lot of fortunate events. I think there's something, it's kind of like, I always imagine it as kind of like when there's a family where everyone plays football or something. And they all, and like, so you just end up with that as a hobby, you know, like my older brother and sister had those hobbies and would go to like dance lessons and drum lessons, so I would, by default, my mom would be like, well, you're not just going to sit in the car and wait, you're going to go and do those lessons too. And I think that's where like, it just became part of my DNA, I guess, in a way where it's like, oh, this is what I do. And then, yeah, luckily got some good breaks. And then it was weird because I got some success as a kid, but it wasn't guaranteed that, you know, you'd work as an adult. So there was this weird part of life where I was like, oh, I like this, and I think I want to do this forever, but I know there's a good chance it doesn't work out, so there's kind of this fear of it as well. So I'm happy it did, and I'm still going. But yeah, it wasn't something that I started or seeked out, I suppose.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks.
Hi, Nick, I'm Houston. First of all, congrats on having such an incredible career. Everyone's been mentioning different characters you've had, or you've played, and it keeps jogging my memory that you're in so many good films. It's such a pleasure to watch you and get to see what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. My question is about The Menu, which is one of my favorite films. A little bit of a two-part question, so I apologize. You played this character, Tyler, who's like this obsessive person about food, and he wants this acceptance from the chef, and he ends up getting humiliated in kind of, you know, really bad way. Has it changed the way that you play that character? Did it change the way that you view obsessive fans in relation to you, and the way that you kind of have to connect, and that they're also kind of know things about you that, you know, you don't know about yourself sometimes just because of the way that kind of people interact? And then the other part of that question is, have you had any interesting experiences in restaurants now that you've played that character? It's kind of in this central space.
The first part of the question, you know what I think it made me appreciate is that I'm probably a little bit that at times, you know what I mean? That person that gets really obsessively fanning about things and doesn't really know anything about it, but is just a fan and really enthusiastic and not able to actually understand what goes into it.
I'm sure you're that way with directors, right? Clint Eastwood, the other people you worked with, right? You get so kind of caught up in who they are and what they mean. I'm sure you have so many questions and things with them.
Yeah, and also I realized that I'm like such a people pleaser. That I'm like, oh, was that good? Is that okay? You're happy? Okay, good. So there's elements of that I understand. But I guess I try to be conscious of that, and also just like that, it's such a different era we're living in, where people think they understand people and their lives so much more because you have access to so many different things, and there's kind of this belief that success happens so quickly overnight that you can just flip a switch and it happens. You don't have to put in the craft and the work to really understand things. But then, in terms of going to restaurants, it's been pretty positive, to be honest with you. I thought it would be more negative. I was like, oh, I've just played this really annoying character. I'm sure a lot of like, you know, servers or chefs are going to be like, get that guy out. So I try and be really extra nice. Like, it's not me, I'm not that person. But actually, it's been really nice because a lot of people in the food industry or in that line of work have liked the film because they're like, oh, that really summed up what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and it really resonated with them. So that's been nice, because it's been like a cool way to get to know people through that.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we only have a few minutes left, so we're going to try to get through as many questions.
Yes. Oh, yes. Maybe.
Hi, I'm glad I got to see you at the microphone earlier this year. Thank you for being there. It was awesome. I kind of have like a short two-part question to ask too. First of all, my favorite movie that I fell in love with you was an X-Men. Like, it just won my heart there. But the question is for Nosferatu, like, how did you mentally prepare yourself for that? And like, what were your thoughts when you were getting all your makeup done for that movie?
Well, luckily I didn't have much makeup, to be honest with you. I was a bit pale, some fake veins. It curled my hair a little bit. But otherwise, the makeup was quite light for me. And mentally preparing, I think it was just listening to Rob and what he needed, and it sounds weird because it's what you're trying to do in every role or movie, is just like suspend belief that what's happening is real. And it feels like a bigger jump when you're in a castle with a 100, 200-year-old vampire. That feels like a bigger jump to like, if you're shooting something modern day where you're sitting in a cafe and chatting to someone about something that could be happening. So it's like the suspense of belief, I think, is something that was really just trying to stay keyed into that to make it feel as real and terrifying as possible.
How did you mentally prepare for that role?
Rob sent a lot of Eastern European movies from the 60s and 70s in terms of performances he liked, and that approach of like watching madness descend upon people and things like that. So it'd be some practical work like that, some reading, and then it's honestly, it's kind of something that Clint Eastwood said to me once. He was like, he walked past me before a take and he said, "What are you thinking about?" And I said, "Absolutely nothing." And he said, "That's my kind of actor." And I asked him about like, how do you act? What do you do? And he was like, it's an emotional art form. It's not something that you're necessarily like always, cerebral about. And I think that's the key with all of it, I guess, in some ways for me, is prepping and thinking about and like understanding as best as possible, and creating a world where you believe you are that character inside yourself, but then also like not overthinking as well, and just being in the moment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, I apologize. We've got the queue for one more question. I'm so sorry. Hey, what's your name?
My name's Jack. It's a pleasure meeting you. So in keeping with the spooky theme of this whole thing, having played the underlings to monsters in Renfield and Nosferatu, one of a collective of monsters in their own bodies, or even a bit of a monster at the dinner table in the menu, given a chance to jump into the role of, a beloved classic monster movie, which one do you think you'd be most excited to play, or, even if you had an original idea, which one do you think you would do?
What was that last part of it?
If you even had like an original idea for a monster movie, what would you want to do as the titular character?
I mean, I'm very excited for what Rob Eggers is going to do with Werewolf. That's I think going to be incredible. I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing this new Frankenstein movie. Ages ago I had this. I was like, oh, play Frankenstein, but like you split personality, whereby each part of the monster that's gone into him is giving him different traits that he can't control. I don't know. I feel like there's been some good versions of monster movies recently, so I don't know how to say one. People be like, no, I did that film, what are you talking about? Wonder Woman.
We did it.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for coming along.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.